Elon Musk does a lot of surprising things in his life, but the most surprising is this. Tesla's Cybertruck, a big baby made entirely of steel, unveiled in 2019, with a simple goal: to become the best pickup on the planet and take Tesla out of the cities to challenge it on its own turf. The Ford F-150, the best-selling vehicle in the United States for 40 years. This thing, which looks like no other, can tow 5 tons, withstand firearms, and even beat a Porsche 911 from 0 to 100. Normally after that, no one would be able to make fun of Tesla anymore. On launch day, it recorded 250,000 pre-orders, and it even surpassed 1 million in just a few weeks. But 7 years later, it's 2026, and the Cybertruck is not a commercial success. It looks normal. Nobody chooses damaged tomatoes at the supermarket. Out of a goal of 250,000 sales per year, they barely managed to produce 39,000 units in 2024 and just 20,000 in 2025. But despite everything, it's still a crazy object that fascinates as much as it divides. There were still 250,000 guys who pulled out their credit cards to place an order on the first day, and if they're driving, it's because they're not blind. Examining the topic, I found the world is split into 3 groups: those who love it and think others don't understand, those who hate it but wonder if they're missing something. Some people just hate it and don't want to learn more, but they're missing out on something interesting. So today, I broke down for you the ultra-simplistic, minimalist, or futuristic design of the Cybertruck. Pick whichever term you prefer. And despite its unusual design, a much higher price than announced, and production issues that made it a total flop, you'll see that, against all odds, it actually started from a good idea. The Cybertruck is the most surprising car of the 21st century, and I mean that. I'm used to talking about polarizing, a bit weird or overly aggressive designs on the channel, but here, we're really dealing with something completely different. When it was unveiled in November 2019 in Los Angeles, the audience was stunned. To be fair, we're used to Elon Musk's jokes. After all, this is a guy who sold hats, a surfboard, bricks, and a flamethrower. So when the journalists there saw the Cybertruck, they wondered if it was a joke, because it looks like an unfinished 3D model or a vehicle from an old video game. Key points to understand how unusual the Cybertruck is. It's all about Bezier curves. That may sound technical or intimidating, but I'll explain it simply. A Bezier curve is just a method for drawing a perfectly smooth line by pulling on invisible points. Imagine that you take a rope, fix it at 2 points, and pull on it with your fingers like on a bowstring. The shape it takes, that natural, smooth, and controlled curve, that's exactly what a Bezier curve is. And today, absolutely every car you see around you is built using that. The rear wing of a Porsche 911 is a continuous taut curve without any break, on which the light glides and gradually changes shape. It's the same thing on a Ferrari 488, which is quite different, or on any classic sedan. Every surface is designed for beautiful reflections, not just the shape, but how light travels across it. In automotive design, we call these Class A surfaces. It's the ultimate level of finish, and behind these surfaces, it's always the same thing. Perfectly controlled Bezier curves. Every car on the market, even the most minimalist ones, even electric cars, even modern SUVs, use Bezier curves. But for the Cybertruck, it's as if the design team took what the automotive industry has perfected over 50 years and decided to throw it in the trash. And it's interesting because Tesla has absolutely never gotten us used to that. Since its beginnings, it has never been an extravagant brand. In terms of design, it's actually quite the opposite. When you look at a Tesla Model S, Model 3 and X or a Y, these are cars with a calm design. That's the word I found, so I don't say ordinary. Their challenge since entering the market has been making electric cars mainstream, which means they can't be too shocking or unique. It's a bit like commercial pop music, designed to be played on the radio and very stereotypical. Tesla's design has done everything to be as universal as possible. The lines are smooth, the surfaces are simple. The car can have insane acceleration, but its style will never be aggressive. In fact, a Tesla is a car of at the same time, a few strong lines and a bit of muscle, but also nothing abrupt. Too lively or no twisted shapes. A little expressiveness in the look, but at the same time a face that's as neutral as possible. No grille to make it visual, simplicity to suggest it's electric, but some shoulder to show dynamism. A totally different propulsion system that wouldn't need a hood but still with the most classic proportions possible, with a hood, all the same. So people don't get lost. By the way, the very first Model S had a fake grille just to look like a sedan. A lot of people think Tesla has something extra, or a particularly modern design, because they're fooled by its marketing. In purely formal terms, it's perfectly calibrated to appeal to the widest audience. It's neither prestigious, showy, or passionate, nor a practical low-cost utility vehicle. No matter the model or the year, we have cars that are readable, familiar, and neutral. Behind this consistency, there's a man, Franz von Althausen, who joined Tesla in 2008. At the start of his journey, after studying in Los Angeles, he worked at Volkswagen and General Motors, contributing to the Pontiac Solstice, and then Mazda, with very fluid concepts like the Nagare and no matter the brand. He always worked in American studios in California, and that's an environment that's nothing like traditional automotive, because California is not Detroit. Over there, technology products are the main industry, designed to be simple for global use. This influenced Tesla to create neutral objects even an 8-year-old can move. And the goal of reaching the widest possible audience was followed to the letter for more than 10 years until the day Tesla decided to do exactly the opposite. Why doesn't the future look like the future? This question comes from Saxon, one of Elon Musk's 14 children. And it became a sort of mantra for the design team when they started working on the Cybertruck. Franz von Holzhausen explained that at the project's start, the team mentally unpacked existing pickups and noticed the market had barely changed. Tricor is always built with the same basics: hood for the engine, cabin for people, bed for cargo. In short, the silhouette never changes. The Cybertruck stands out because its influences aren't from traditional American pickups. Elon Musk bought for $1 million in 2013 the Lotus Esprit submarine from James Bond, The Spy Who Loved Me, with Roger Moore. From the very beginning of the project, they moved it directly into the studio so they could keep an eye on it at all times, and you can really see how it influenced them. Alongside that, they took inspiration from the world of Blade Runner, or other objects with simple and aggressive geometry, like the F-117 Nighthawk, the Countach, and other cars from the 70s, the Gandini period. That's why the Cybertruck's shape uses a style rarely seen in the auto industry today. The Wedge literally means a doorstop-shaped design, which is also called folded paper style. It developed in the early 1970s as a clear reaction to the style of the 1960s car design shifted from hand-shaped organic curves to hard straight lines with corners, to look like machines shaped by other machines. In the 1970s, this was really the height of modernity and technology. Curves symbolize the past, while this new language focuses on the future, performance, and success. On the Cybertruck and many Wetton-era cars, the triangle dominates the silhouette. Begin at the front, move up the windshield, over the roof, and down to the back in one smooth line. And where a traditional pickup clearly separates the hood, cab, and bed, the Cybertruck, on the contrary, tries to give the impression of a single block, like a single volume carved from a solid mass. This style also, paradoxically, helps make it look visually slimmer than it really is, because with its 5.7 meters length and 3.64 meters wheelbase, it's huge. The slanted line from the front headlight to the rear light forms an upper triangle that catches light and splits the volume in two. Another way to visually reduce volume is to maintain a consistent style. The strict half-hexagon shape of the wheel arches, reminiscent of the Countach, creates a large gap between the body and tires to remove material, unlike classic wheel arches that would make the side view look heavier. But choosing to make a pickup in wedge design isn't trivial, and it's not just to look futuristic. In fact, beyond the team's inspirations from the 70s, above all, it's a way to address an industrial constraint that Tesla set for itself on this project: the architecture. The Cybertruck isn't built like a traditional car, it's an exoskeleton. The bodywork is part of the structure, which means you need fewer parts, but you have a lot more constraints because each panel has to be structurally strong and able to absorb mechanical stresses. Additionally, everything is made from stainless steel, the same material as the SPACEX Starship, which is so rigid it can't be stamped like a traditional car body. Therefore, you can't create shapes, curves, or sculpted forms, only cut flat panels and bend them in straight lines. With one technical choice, all automotive design rules are disregarded. No more curves, no more surface tension, and no sculpting, just perfectly flat planes connected only by sharp edges. And let me share a little fun fact because nobody really notices this. The surfaces appear flat, but they're not. Tesla adds invisible microcurves called crowns to prevent panels from appearing wavy and light. There you go. Do with that information what you will. But now you know that even ultra-minimalist designs still have some surface control. Well, on paper, the Cybertruck was supposed to be a revolution. We remember that in 2019, when Elon Musk came on stage and presented a futuristic pickup with a starting price around $39,000, it was a tidal wave of orders. At the time, he announced a vehicle that would be simple to produce, precisely because it broke all the codes of traditional automobiles, except that in reality, it turned out to be exactly the opposite. Due to its rocket-grade stainless steel, Tesla had to overhaul its manufacturing process and leave behind years of automotive expertise. As a result, increasing production is very slow and industrialization is more complex than expected. But that's not the only problem. On a regular car, the body panels are relatively forgiving during assembly. You can adjust and correct to compensate if needed. With the Cybertruck, that's impossible. If a panel isn't perfect, it has to be replaced, and that's an industrial nightmare. Especially since these panels are visually unforgiving, they're flat, reflective, and unpainted, so every flaw becomes immediately visible. Likewise, even the slightest gap between two panels becomes obvious. And that's why, on the first pre-production models, many journalists or testers noticed irregular fittings that damaged the pickup's reputation. And in terms of timing, it's exactly what you shouldn't do in the industry. The Cybertruck was unveiled in 2019, and Tesla announced production for 2021. In the end, the first deliveries arrived at the end of 2023, 2 years after the announced date, 4 years after the launch. That's an eternity, and it destroys the commercial potential. They announced over 1 million pre-orders, but these only required a small deposit of about $100, so the commitment isn't strong. Each week, as wait times increase, more customers lose interest and abandon their pre-orders, even if it costs them $100. To top it all off, the Cybertruck was announced at a relatively affordable price, around $40,000, but the versions that are actually being sold are much more expensive, and that completely changes the target audience. Today, the Cybertruck is a clear commercial failure and doesn't compete with traditional pickups like the Ford F-150, which remains the best-selling vehicle in the United States. It's become a product of its own, more radical and more expensive. And all of that is because of the choices made in terms of design and production. But to be honest, they didn't need to go that far. If Tesla had launched a regular pickup with their usual design, not stainless steel, Americans likely still would have bought it and taken market share from Ford and Chevrolet. So, why go out of their way to make things so complicated? It's very likely that it was done on purpose. In 2018, Elon Musk announced the launch of a gigafactory in Shanghai. For several years, he had been negotiating directly with the Chinese government and managed to obtain 3 absolutely unprecedented things: land, local financing, and administrative support. It's the first car factory in China to be 100% owned by a foreign company. For him, it's a way to expand Tesla in a promising market by speeding up production and reducing costs. He was received by top Chinese officials, including the Prime Minister, because he's seen as a key player in speeding up the electric car industry. And during his many trips there before 2018, Musk is at the heart of the action. To see what seems obvious to us today, but that few people anticipated 8 or 10 years ago, the Chinese automotive industry is going to flood the world like a tsunami. He clearly sees that it's coming, and he knows there's nothing he can do about it. The Chinese government is flooding its companies with subsidies. BYD Neo or Xpeng are already huge over there while nobody knows them in Europe. For now, Elon Musk himself will say that Chinese manufacturers are the most competitive in the world given their rise and their speed of execution. So, he has a problem. How? Will the brand that made electric cars cool and prepared the market be able to stay on top? Once much cheaper and just as technological cars come to offer fierce competition. The logical reaction would have been simple: become a perfectly oiled machine, optimize the whole business, and make better cars for less money. But faced with the Chinese government's money, Tesla can't win. They're moving faster and the margin is high, so the question shifts. Instead of asking how to make a better car, Tesla must now ask how to stay desirable when everyone can do the same thing. Especially now, Tesla is changing. It started as a niche brand for pioneers, geeks, early adopters, and tech fans, the people who believed in electric cars from the start. Then, little by little, the Model 3 and the Model Y arrive, making Tesla mainstream. Having a Tesla is no longer a crazy thing at all. Any accountant can lease one to feel cool. They're selling hundreds of thousands of cars, and little by little, they're becoming a normal brand. That's still good news. They looked for profitability for years, but honestly, it's a poisoned gift. Because the appeal of this brand, which doesn't have a strong history or legitimacy in motorsports, was built on the idea of being ahead. Ahead of its time, ahead of your neighbor, ahead of your brother-in-law or your colleagues. As it sells more and its design becomes familiar, it loses its unique value. This is especially true since recent generations of cars have been predictable for several seasons. They stick the brand's style onto any silhouette without changing anything to create a coherent product line. To maintain its aura and appeal, Tesla must give back and again become a brand that surprises with cars of the future. The Cybertruck meets every requirement. It looks unlike any other pickup, defies market norms, and doesn't try to match the rest of Tesla's lineup. On the contrary, it creates a complete break, and that's extremely powerful. In a market where everything is becoming similar, electric cars look alike, and technology is standardized, Tesla shows everyone that they make cars that are completely out of the box, and that energizes the whole brand. Even if you're in Europe and you can't buy a Cybertruck, you know that Tesla is capable of doing that. It subconsciously shifts your entire perception, making the strategy clear for me. The Cybertruck isn't just meant to be sold, but it serves to reposition Tesla by acting as a counterbalance that rebalances the brand's image by injecting a good dose of boldness. That's essential because as long as customers feel they're buying a product ahead of its time, Tesla can keep selling SUVs to accountants worldwide. The crazy design, the bulletproof body, and the technical choices serve to maintain an illusion. The illusion that Tesla is always ahead, always different, and always in the future. And that illusion is probably worth more than any technical innovation. If you liked this video, you'll love this one, where I break down in detail BMW's new risky bet. Just click there, and I'll see you next time.